Hello everyone, today we have a branded Bystial deck profile piloted by my good friend Josh right here with an impressive 4-1-1 record for his 5th place top at the Sioux Falls, South Dakota Regional. Take it away.
All right, so as said, we are on branded Bystial. We faced a couple of different decks over the day: Sprites, branded Tier Elements, Bird Up, Draco Slayers, and a mirror match. The mirror match was actually the tie because pushing through double Masquerades can be a little rough and eat up a lot of time. But we got there. So we'll go ahead and start it off with the Despia branded portion. Starting off, 3 Alubers. He's mandatory. He's the best card of the Despias. You need him to search fusion, but the freedom to search things like a branded in red to play around a Bystial or branded lost to just completely guarantee you get through your Mirrorjade makes him very strong as well. Next, we play 2 Despian Tragedies. This card is amazing. I want to play it at 3 at times just because in the Tier Element to Sioux match, milling one of these feels so good. Not only because it gets you your search, but then in the next turn you can use it to threaten to grab back one of your other spells. But unfortunately he clogs a little too much at anything beyond 2. Finally, to round off our Despias, we play the 1 Dramaturge. Specialing this off a branded opening during your opponent's turn feels amazing. You get to, especially if you just do it off of your first, or on the first Tier Element fusion, because then their Kalos is getting negated. He's very strong for pushing through for game, and we only play him instead of Ad Libitum because Ad Libitum, it has such a big target on its back, always and forever, due to the Sioux card shuffled back and being darks. You're just almost never going for the Guardian Chimera play anymore, so it's not worth it to run the Ad Lib. Moving on to Fallen of Albaz, we're at 2. He is the center of the deck because it's, branded fusion deck. Very strong, forces interactions. We play 1 incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous. A lot of people kind of disagree with this, want it to be a Blazing Cartagia instead. However, I find that incredible, acting as a 3rd Fallen of Albaz for turn, or for when you go 2nd, as well as being a Fallen of Albaz that you don't have to normal summon. Really puts pressure on boards. Her add back is the same, so it keeps card advantage. She's a light, so we can send her if we run out of our other lights. And I think it also can be used to kind of throw off your opponent because it's typically seen as a Sword Soul card. Meanwhile, Blazing Cartagia requires you to have a Fallen of Albaz on the field or in the graveyard, which is usually not something you want. Then we play 1 Tri-Brigade Mercourier to search. We are on the loss, so we search it off of that. It has some uses in being banished because we are playing the Bystial, so we can banish it when we want to. And then 1 Albion, just for the Retribution dump, but as another card that's good to be milled, and having it engraved to be a Fallen of Albaz is also very nice as well. He can also serve as Fallen of Albaz in really, really awkward hands. Moving on to the spell trap lineup for the Despia branded side of things. We are on 3 branded fusion. It's the core of the deck. Because we run the Bystial Lubellions, we do go for Albion to start off a lot because getting a Bystial Lubellion in cycle to get beast up is too good to pass up on. If you're afraid of playing into Bestials, though, you can always just go straight for Lubellion and feel very fine. We are then on 1 Despia Theater of the Branded to keep, because it's too strong of a field spell to pass on. In grindy games, it comes up being able to threaten bring back a Mirrorjade or some other fusion is just very strong. We do play as well 3 branded openings. It's a consistency card for you. It functions well with some other side cards in the deck, and often we're setting it off of Albion instead of branded in red, so we can pop out that Dramaturge during your opponent's turn if you don't have access to it already. Because a extra monster negate is just extremely powerful in this format against Sprite, stopping the Gigantic or the Sprint, against Tear Element, stopping the Kick Callus effect without necessarily needing to use a Bystial to stop them from making Kick Callus in the first place. We do play 1 Branded Lost. Like we said, it ensures that you get to your Mirrorjade and is very strong against the tier board as well. If you get to set this up, then you're no longer worried about crime or solely stopping you from getting to Mirrorjade. And then once Mirrorjade's on the board, you care a lot less about their other effects. We play 2 Branded and Reds. I've thought about cutting it to 1. Its purpose now is more of a backup plan for when you run into a Bystial. You grab an Albaz back and use into Lubellion anyways to dodge the Bystial or to dodge a tier element fullback. It also functions to force the shufflebacks as well, which if you can force tier element to use all their Sioux shufflebacks, the deck starts feeling a lot more fair.
As if.
Yes, that's indeed. Rounding off the Despia branded traps, spells traps, we play 2 Retributions. A lot of people weren't even on this weekend. I saw a couple different branded Bystials, but it's way too strong, especially with the fact that you run Saronir because you want to dump your Lubellion. If you don't need the Lubellion, you dump this instead, and this is another way to force yourself back. It's another way to win the grind game. We really want to out-resource our opponent with this build. It can also be set off of Albion effects if you are playing into something like Sprite, because this on a Gigantic is absolutely devastating.
Yeah, it is.
Moving on to the Bystial side of things, we play 2 Bystial Lubellions. If you really want to, you can try to get by with 1. At that point, you're probably upping some of your other Bystial accounts. But it's such a strong board-breaking card. It gets Branded Beast into rotation. If you've got a awkward hand, it can also do things like get a Lost activated. It just does way too much. As part of our main combo, we send this to make Albion, then banish our own Aluber to make a Lubellion off of Albion, and then leaving an Albion on the field after we make our Mirrorjade that we can send to the grave with this to get Albion effect without having to waste Mirrorjade during our own turn. Part of why we can afford to skip on ad libitum. Next, 3 Magnamhut. We have a lot of good dragon targets in Fallen of Albaz and Albion and our Lubellion and our other Bystials, so we play them at 3. And you just have to stop the tier fusions if you can, and putting out a 25 beater into Sprite is also very strong. Next, we play 2 Bystial Druiswurm. Just a great board-breaking card. We don't link it off, so we have to get it engraved some other ways, but it still functions very well for us. Specifically because we run the Branded Beast, so it turns it Branded Beast into a twofer. Then we run 2 Saronir. This is the one that I would suggest upping your count of if you're only going to run 1 Lubellion, because it's just another way to get Lubellion to cycle. Opening this plus Branded Opening almost feels as good as opening Branded Opening plus Tragedy, because dumping a Lubellion or dumping a Retribution so you know that you can freely Retribution back whatever you discarded for a Lubellion effect feels amazing. Getting a Branded Lost in the graveyard or a Branded Regained in the graveyard when you know you already have Lubellion setting up Beast, so you can get one of those 2 set up as well, is also just very strong. I like him at 2 because I have the 2 Lubellions, but if you're playing one, he's, I would say, mandatory at 3. Moving on to the Bystial Spell and Traps. They are called branded cards, so they can still be searched by Aluber, but they play more with the Bystials than they do Despia. We play 2 Branded Beasts. A lot of people play the 1. I think that if you want to get your count down, play the 1. I just like being able to set up a second one if I start for a grind game, because this is a big target for destruction. Interestingly enough, it is also a soft once per turn to pop a card with it, so getting 2 on the board is actually very fun. Then we play the 1 Branded Regained. This is how we win the resource war. We constantly are banishing cards through our Albions. We're banishing them with our Bystials. We are shuffling back things that our opponent banished for us. Branded Red banishes cards. So we have plenty of ways to get the draw mechanic off, and then being able to special back our Bystials engraved with it just means that Branded Beast is always live. Funny enough, if you see it in the mirror, it turn player loses the war between 2 Branded Regains. So just remember that if you're playing in the mirror, that you don't want to use it on your turn, because they're just going to get the draw off of it anyways. So you can bait their interaction by, letting them get the first draw, and then you take the second banish for the turn. Moving on to our tech cards. We play 3 Forbidden Droplets. This is just way too strong to pass on. It is a little weaker with the macros and defissures coming up, but we play so many spell 1-card starters or spell starters that might eat an interruption. That droplet feels amazing to work with. It is also very strong with Druiswurm, and we can even do some fun things like into a tier board, and where they chain a Bystial or chain a Sioux shuffleback, we can then just activate Droplet, pitch the Bystial that is now dead in our hand to out one of their monster interactions. Moving on, we play 3 Infinite Impermanences. Stopping Root, stopping Gigantic, stopping Sprine, stopping Sprite, or not Sprite Elf, Tier Element Kid Kalos is too important to pass on. We play this instead of the effect failures just because we don't want to give our opponents free Bystial targets. And then it's just also a little more flexible as a card for turn. just a single imperm can actually do quite a lot to a sprite board or element board. Starting off with imperming a Rube Kalos, you're feeling pretty good. Starting off with imperming the elf, even if they choose to frog set it, suddenly they don't have the frog on board unless they to respond to your next action. And so sometimes you can get a branded fusion off if they didn't search cross, and then they're just trying to respond to things a little too late. Finally, this is more of a consistency card. We play 3 Allures of Darkness. Something you can cut down on if you're trying to make the space, or if you're struggling with space. But draw 2, banish a tragedy is very strong. Draw 2, banish a Bystial, and then regain, shuffle back is way too strong to pass up on. All right, and that rounds out the main deck. We are at 44. As I said, there's a couple things that you can cut. Cut a Branded Beast, cut a Druiswurm, cut an Allure, and maybe cut one of the, something like a Mercourier if you want to get yourself down to a 40 flat. Moving on to the extra deck. The king of the deck, Mirrorjade, the Iceblade Dragon. This card is a major problem for a lot of decks. Sprite specifically, he has to go for a wind-up kitten or be playing Brave Sprite and the Draco back if they don't want to lose their board when they out it, or just kill you that turn. Usually easier said than done. And then the non-target banish also just deals with one of Sprite's main plans in Avermax so easily. Yes. Moving on to Albion, the Branded Dragons. We go into him primarily first off of Branded Fusion, but he's also a target for Mirrorjade to dump. We're searching our branded reds or branded openings, our branded retributions with it. Something you can do if you're sure your opponent doesn't have a Bystial in hand is you can actually use it to add to hand instead of setting. And you can do some fun things with that. I have made a Mirrorjade during end phase because my opponent banished the or impermed the Albion. So I didn't get to go straight to Lubellion, but I still had the Bystial Lubellion in the graveyard, tributed off the Albion, and so Albion activated, and we add Branded Red to hand, and then we fire Branded Red, target our Albaz, and make a Lubellion anyways. Next, we play 2 Lubellion the Searing Dragons. Because we only play the 2 Albions, I like to have him at 2. Just means that we don't always have to choose the shuffle back Lubellion if we want to keep him live as a fusion target. And there's just so many times that you're going to be shuffling back other extra deck monsters that you need to play more than one. Next, we play 1 Albion. It's just another send, but it's also fun for contact fusing away your opponent's Bystials. Then, moving on to the Despian names, we do run 1 Despian Quiritis. It's a little less strong now that we don't see Baron on every board, but it's still a great beater and a great board breaker, especially into Sprite. We play 2 Masquerade the Blazing Dragons because taxes are so much fun. Putting one of these up after you've punched your opponent can honestly put a recovery out of reach for them. We play 1 Guardian Chimera. We don't go into it often. It's still a very strong play, so we have to play the 1. we play one Drago. This is something you might make off if your Albaz is banished and we don't have the play around in Branded in red. It's very good against Sprite and decent against Tier Element. Finally, we have a couple of extra deck spots that are really free to change. I do not play the Super Poly, so some of these make a lot less sense, but I was not able to get cards or two that I planned to play for the weekend, so they remained in. One Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, one Garua, the Resident, or one Garura, and one Mud Dragon. This is the one that's most likely to cut, just because you don't have a good way to send it to grave, and if you're not playing Super Polys, it's kind of worthless. You can't even work with the branded Super Poly trap. Alright, moving on to the side deck. We play the Gamma package. It's very strong into Sprite. It's a good option into Flunder and into other rogue matches, and it even has some niche uses into Tier Element. Often they're going to have one monster effect that's open by itself, and then that's when you fire it off, as long as it's not a tier name effect. No, on field. Then we'll move on. We play the 3 Dimension Shifters. We play this one, but not Defissure or Macrocosmos, because it's a expiring effect. We don't have to try to out it ourselves, which we don't have a good way to out a Defissure macro that's on our side of the field. Branded Beasts can put in work against their opponents, but they can't do our own field. We then play, as a board breaker, 3 evenly matched, mostly sided against Tier and Flunder. Funnily enough, you can also threaten having this against Flunder to make them put out the Albion before you use something like Droplet or... Yes. Anyways. We'll go for Flunder as well, and Rogue we have Cosmic Cyclone. Just one more thing, and we don't like back row too much. And finally, for going first, we play this package. Shout out to Larson for helping me figure it out. The Branded Explosion we put out with Albion effect, and we then have these 2 targets. Lancia more for playing into Flunder, but also if we don't want to go for the Scythe Lock necessarily, or we're worried the Scythe Lock won't land, as a anti-evenly measure. And then Artifact Scythe for the rest of the format. We can even play around Bystials with this by using our own Bystials to banish Scythe during our turn. And then Branded Explosion can target 2 banished monsters then, meaning that Bystials cannot stop it. Usually we have an Aluber banished as well, so we also just generate advantage during our turn. That rounds out the side deck. We do have a couple shout outs to my teammates, Matthew Holmes and Larson Charlbeck, for helping me figure out and helping me grind this deck so much, as well as to our sponsor, Lionheart Games LLC in St. Cloud.
All right, well, thank you for the really unique Branded Bystial deck profile. It's always a treat to see what you come up with, and I'm sure we'll see many more in the future. And congratulations on this is your first top of the 2023 season, yeah?
It will be, yeah.
First of many, I'm sure. Thank you for watching, everybody, and thank you to Josh for the amazing deck. Have a great day.